Lyra had touched thousands of minds before. She was a telepath, the best in her fleet. She could read secrets, twist thoughts, and pull hidden truths like threads from a cloth. Nothing ever surprised her. No mind was ever too strong. Until today, the human sat in the chair, hands bound, eyes calm. His name was Ethan. To the crew, he was just a captured soldier from a small planet called Earth, a world new to the stars. Weak, primitive, harmless. Lyra believed that too. She walked into the cold interrogation room without fear. Her long silver robes brushed against the floor as she stopped in front of him. He looked up at her with steady brown eyes. No anger, no hate, just calm. That calmness made her pause. For a moment, "You will not resist," she said softly, her voice full of confidence. Ethan smiled. "Do what you have to." Something about that smile made her uneasy, but she ignored it. She raised her hand and touched his temple. Warm skin, a steady heartbeat under her fingers. She closed her eyes and entered his mind. And then, everything broke. The first thing she saw was light. Endless light, burning like the core of a star. It was too bright, too wild. She tried to shape it, control it, but it was like trying to hold fire in her hands. The light turned into images. A battlefield. Dead machines burning. Black skies split open by storms. And in the center, a figure. Tall, human. Covered in blood, but smiling like a god. Lyra gasped. This wasn't normal memory. It was alive. Moving, pulling her deeper. She felt something watching her. Something inside his mind that was not him. A presence. Old, hungry. And it spoke. "Why did you look?" The voice wasn't sound. It was a vibration through her bones. Lyra tried to pull back, but the presence held her like a hand around her throat. Her mind filled with screams, not his, but hers. She saw more images flash. Stars falling, alien fleets burning, a world of ashes. And then darkness. Her eyes flew. Open. She wasn't standing anymore. She was on the floor, trembling, her chest heaving for air. Her head felt like it had been split open. She looked around in panic. The room was spinning. The lights were too bright. "Easy," a calm voice said. She turned her head. Ethan was still sitting there, still tied, still calm. That same small smile on his lips. Not mocking, not angry. Just knowing. "What? What are you?" Lyra whispered. Her voice cracked like glass. Ethan tilted his head, eyes soft like he almost pitied her. "You looked inside my head," he said slowly. "That was your mistake." Lyra tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Her hands shook as she pressed them to the cold floor. She had never felt fear like this, not even during war. She had touched killers before. She had read criminals, soldiers, spies. None of them broke her. None of them made her want to run. But this human? This one man sitting in chains? His mind was a void full of fire. Something impossible was hiding inside him. Something that should not exist. She swallowed hard. Her voice was a whisper. I saw, you saw nothing," Ethan interrupted gently. "You saw a glimpse. If you had gone deeper." He leaned forward, his eyes locking on hers. "You wouldn't be breathing now." A cold wave ran through her body. For the first time in her life, Lyra couldn't speak. She felt his presence even now, like a shadow pressing against her thoughts. Silent, waiting, watching. The door burst. Open. 2 alien guards ran in, weapons raised. What happened? One shouted. They saw Lyra on the floor, pale and shaking. She touched him. The other whispered, fear in his voice. Lyra's lips trembled. She wanted to tell them to kill him, to end this now. But when she looked back at Ethan, His calm smile froze. Her words. Because deep down, she knew something terrible. If they killed him, something worse would wake up Dot, and in that cold, silent room, Lyra realized the truth. The human wasn't the one in chains. They were. Asterisk Lyra woke to the sound of voices. The world around her was blurry, like glass dipped in water. Her head ached, as if someone had cracked it open and poured in fire. She blinked slowly, forcing her vision to focus. White walls, medical lights, a soft hum in the air. She was in the med bay. She's awake, a voice said. It was sharp, clipped, full of authority. Lyra turned her head. A tall alien officer stood near her bed, arms crossed. Behind him were two guards, both gripping their weapons tightly. They weren't looking at her, they were looking at the human. Behind the glass wall. Ethan Dot. He sat calmly in the observation room, still in the same chair, still bound by metal restraints. His head was tilted slightly, as if he was listening to something far away. And then, slowly, his eyes turned and met hers through the glass. Lyra's chest tightened. That calm stare, it was worse than rage, worse than hate. Because calmness meant control. It meant confidence. It meant he wasn't afraid. What happened in there? The officer demanded, dragging her attention away from Ethan. You're the strongest telepath on this ship. You've read warlords, assassins, even that hive overmind. None of them broke you. But one human? Explain. Lyra opened her mouth. No words came out. Her throat was dry as sand. How could she explain something that didn't make sense even to her? How could she tell them that inside that human's mind was something alive, something that wasn't supposed to exist? Her voice cracked. He's not normal. The officer frowned. Not normal? He's a human, a primitive from a dirt world. Lyra's hands clenched the sheets. You don't understand. I touched his mind and... She stopped. The memory flashed. The light, the fire, the voice whispering, why did you look? Her heart pounded like drums. And something looked back. The officer stared at her. What do you mean? Before she could answer, a sound slid into her mind, not into the room, not into her ears, into her mind. A soft whisper. You talk too much. Lyra froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at the glass wall again. Ethan was still sitting there, still calm, still watching her. His lips hadn't moved, but the voice had been clear. His voice. No, she whispered. Her pulse roared in her ears. Lyra? The officer said, sharply. What is it? She couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. Because the whisper came again, soft, slow, curling like smoke. You opened the door. Now I can walk through. Lyra gripped her head, pressing her hands against her temples as if she could shut the sound out. But it was inside, deep in her. Bones. She could feel him moving in her thoughts like a shadow. No telepath could do this. Not without touch. Not without permission. This was impossible. The officer barked orders. Get her sedated, now. A medic ran forward with an injector. Lyra tried to push him away, but her body was weak. The hiss of the injector filled the air. Cold spread through her veins. Her vision blurred again. As the world faded, she heard the last whisper. Sleep, little mind reader. When you wake, we'll talk. Lyra drifted in darkness for what felt like hours. When her eyes opened again, the lights were dim. The med bay was quiet. Her body felt heavy, wrapped in a soft blanket. For a moment, she thought it had been a dream. Then she heard it. You dream loud, Lyra. Her heart stopped. The voice was inside her mind again, calm, amused, patient. She looked around wildly, but the med bay was empty. Through the glass, the human was gone. The door opened. A guard stepped in, pale and shaking. The prisoner. His voice broke. He's not in the cell. Lyra's blood ran cold. Asterisk. The guard's voice shook like glass in a storm. He's gone. The human is gone. Lyra's heart slammed against her ribs. Gone? That was impossible. Ethan had been locked in a reinforced chamber behind layers of steel and force fields. No human could break those restraints. No one could slip past those guards, unless he was something more than human. Lock down the ship. The officer barked from the hall. Find him, sirens blared. Red lights flashed across the med bay walls. Lyra pushed herself off the bed. Legs weak, vision swimming. She gripped the rail for balance, but her mind wasn't steady. Something was wrong. She could feel it a ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. The whisper came again. They run like ants. Her breath caught. The voice was calm, amused, and far too close. Her eyes darted around the empty med bay, heart pounding like thunder. Where are you? She whispered aloud. Here. The lights flickered. For an instant, the reflection in the glass wasn't her own. It was him, his eyes burning with something that wasn't natural. She stumbled back, her pulse racing. Leave me alone. Her voice cracked, trembling like a leaf in the wind. A soft laugh curled inside her mind. You came to me first. You opened the door, little mind reader. Do you think doors close themselves? Lyra pressed her hands against her temples. She had to block him out. She had to shut the link. But every wall she built in her mind, he tore apart like paper. Stop fighting. You're making it worse. The sirens outside grew louder. Heavy. Boots pounded down the hall. Lyra barely noticed. Her world was shrinking, collapsing into whispers and shadows. She felt his thoughts pressing against hers, dark, endless, like the void between stars. And behind them, something else. Something alive, watching, waiting. What are you? She gasped. Human, the voice said softly. Then, after a pause, and something more, the door burst open. 2 guards rushed in with weapons raised. Ma'am, we're evacuating the med bay. He could. Both men froze mid-sentence. Their eyes widened. Slowly, they turned their heads toward the far corner of the room. Lyra followed their gaze. Her breath caught. Ethan stood there, not bound, not afraid. His hands rested calmly at his sides. His clothes were torn. Blood smeared across his sleeve, but his face carried that same soft smile, the one that made her stomach twist with something colder than fear. Hello again, he said quietly. 1 guard fired. The plasma bolt hit him square in the chest and vanished. No sound. No burn mark, no smoke. The energy just dissolved, like water sinking into sand. The second guard screamed. And fired too. Same result. The bolts vanished before they touched him. Ethan didn't even move. Enough, he said. The guards dropped their weapons, not by choice. Their hands opened against their will, fingers twitching like broken machines. The guns clattered. To the floor, Lyra's heart stopped. She had seen telepaths control minds before, but this wasn't that. This wasn't suggestion or influence. This was command. Pure and absolute. Leave, Ethan said. The guards turned and walked out like puppets on strings. The door slid shut behind them. Now it was just her and him. Lyra tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her body felt frozen, pinned by an invisible. Wait. He walked toward her slowly, every step echoing in the silent room. His calm eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, she saw it again. The fire, the void. That terrible presence hiding behind his thoughts. You shouldn't have looked. He whispered. His voice was soft, but it struck like a blade. You touched something you were never meant to touch. What? What is it? Her voice finally broke free, small and shaking. "That thing inside you, what is it?" Ethan stopped right in front of her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he leaned down, his breath brushing her ear. "It's what happens when you try to break a species that refuses to bow." Lyra's blood turned to ice. Before she could move, before she could even breathe, he was gone. Vanished. The door didn't open. The air didn't stir. One moment he was there, and the next he wasn't. The whisper lingered like smoke in her mind. "Run if you want. It won't matter." Asterisk alarms wailed. Red lights flashed along the corridors. Command officers barked orders over the comms, their voices sharp with panic. "Seal every deck. Activate internal shields. Find the human now." Lyra barely heard them. Her pulse drowned out everything. She stumbled through the corridor, her steps unsteady, her mind burning with whispers. He was still there inside her head. Every thought felt like glass cracking under pressure. She stopped at an empty junction, gripping the wall for support. Her chest heaved with shallow breaths. She closed her eyes, trying to build a wall inside her mind, a shield strong enough. To keep him out. It didn't work. "You're wasting energy, Lyra." His voice slid through her skull like smoke through cracks. Calm, patient, terrifying. "Stop." She whispered to no one. "Please, stop." "You saw the edge," Ethan murmured inside her thoughts. "But you didn't see what waits beyond." It, and then it happened, not by her will, not by his touch, but by something deeper. The link pulled her in hard, and sudden dragging her back into his mind like a current sweeping her into black water. Lyra gasped as the corridor vanished. The ship, the alarms, everything dissolved into darkness. And then the darkness opened like a wound. She stood in a field of ash under a red sky. Black smoke curled upward like claws. Broken cities lay in ruins, towers split in half like snapped bones. Rivers burned instead of flowing. And above it all, something moved slow, massive, impossible. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a beast. It was both. A shape like a serpent made of steel, coiling through the sky with eyes of fire. Lyra's knees shook. Her voice came out as a broken whisper. "What is this?" "Memory," Ethan's voice answered. "It came from everywhere and nowhere. Or maybe prophecy. Does it matter?" She turned and froze. Ethan was there, standing a few steps away, but not as she knew him. His eyes glowed with golden light, bright enough to burn. His body was covered in black armor that pulsed like living skin. And around him, shadows moved shapes of humans, but wrong, taller, stronger, twisted into something almost divine. "They tried to chain us," Ethan said softly. "They broke us, so we learned to break them first." Images hit her like blades, aliens screaming, fleets burning, stars falling from the sky like dying embers. She saw entire empires collapse under something she couldn't name. Something that was human and not. "No," she whispered. Her hands shook as she stumbled back. "This isn't real." Ethan's golden eyes locked on hers. "You think this is about real?" His voice was low, cutting through her like ice. "You think this is about what is?" "No, Lyra. This is about what waits." The ground trembled. The sky split open with light so bright it carved through the ruins like fire through paper. And from that light came a sound, a roar, deep and endless, like the voice of a god waking from a long sleep. Lyra clutched her head, screaming, "Stop! Stop this!" But the images kept coming, faster, harder, humans tearing through armies like storms of blades, machines bending like soft metal in their hands. An alien queen kneeling in chains before a man with eyes like suns. Then, silence. Lyra opened her eyes, and she was back in the corridor. Her knees hit the floor with a thud. Sweat soaked her robes. Her body shook as if every nerve had been burned. She gasped for air, dragging it into lungs that didn't seem to work. Her mind felt raw, carved open. Every image still burned behind her eyes. And then she heard it, the whisper, gentle, almost kind. Now you know why you should have stayed out of my head. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She pressed her forehead against the cold floor and whispered, "What are you?" The answer came slow, dark, final. We're what happens when gods forget who made them. Asterisk explosions rippled through its metal skin, echoing down the corridors. Lights flickered, alarms howled, and voices screamed over the coms. Hull breach. On deck 4, shields failing, we're under attack. Lyra staggered against the wall as the deck tilted beneath her feet. Her head still burned from the vision images of fire, broken skies, and human eyes glowing like stars. But this wasn't a dream. This was happening now. She forced her legs to move, stumbling toward the command deck. Every breath felt like fire in her chest. Every whisper of his voice still curled like smoke inside her skull. I warned you. She didn't want to hear him. She didn't want to think about him. But there was no escape, not from Ethan, not from whatever he carried. Inside, the command doors slid open. The room was chaos officers shouting, screens flashing red with warnings. Through the viewport, Lyra saw what made her blood freeze dock an entire fleet. Ships with jagged black hulls and glowing red engines, moving like predators through the void. They weren't pirates. They weren't scavengers. These were war machines, armed for slaughter. They're boarding. An officer shouted. Multiple breaches on every deck. The captain's voice cut through the storm. Seal the human cell. Now. Lyra's stomach turned cold. The human, Ethan, he wasn't in his cell. And if these attackers were here, for him, the deck shook again, harder this time. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The lights died for half a second, long enough for Lyra to feel it dot the shift. The whisper. Time to wake them up. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She spun toward the viewport and froze. There he was. Ethan stood outside in the void. No suit, no shield. Just his body, floating in the black sea of stars like a god. The glass between them trembled, as if even the ship could feel his presence. Lyra couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He raised his hand. The attacking ships turned toward him and stopped. Every engine flickered out like candles in a storm. The silence that followed was worse than the alarms. One by one, the warships twisted, metal screaming as invisible hands crushed them like toys. Hulls folded, guns snapped. And then, in a flash of white fire, they exploded into nothing. The command deck fell silent. Dozens of eyes stared in horror at the viewport, at the man who had just destroyed an entire fleet without touching a single weapon. Lyra's knees weakened. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "That's not possible." But Ethan wasn't done. He drifted back toward the ship, like a shadow sliding through water. The hull groaned as airlocks burst open without alarms, without force fields. He didn't walk through doors. He stepped through metal like it was fog. And then he was inside. The doors behind Lyra opened without sound. She turned slowly, every nerve screaming, every breath sharp as knives. He stood there, calm, barefoot. His torn clothes still clung to him, but now his eyes were glowing. Not like light, not like fire, like something alive looking out through human skin. "Leave?" he said softly. The captain raised his weapon. His hands shook, but he aimed. "Don't," Ethan blinked. Asterisk. The weapon dissolved in the captain's hands. Not melted, not broken, dissolved like dust in the wind. I said, "Leave." Every officer in the room froze, their eyes glazed, their bodies stiff. And then, like sleepwalkers, they turned and walked out, every single one, their boots tapping softly against the floor until the room was empty. Except for her Lyra. She couldn't move. Her legs were rooted, her lungs tight with terror. She wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in her throat like a stone. Ethan looked at her, not with hate, not with anger, just that same calm smile that chilled her to the bone. "You saw what they made us," he said softly, stepping closer. "But you didn't see why." Lyra swallowed hard. What are you?" His voice was gentle, almost sad. "What happens when you push a species to the edge, and then off the cliff?" Asterisk. The silence in the command deck was louder than the alarms had ever been. The officers were gone. The captain was gone. Only two figures remained. Lyra and the human who was no longer just human. Ethan stood in the center of the room, calm and unhurried. His glowing eyes dimmed slightly, but the power behind them lingered like heat after a storm. He looked around slowly, as if studying the empty space, then turned his gaze on her. Lyra's legs trembled. Her mouth was dry as ash. She wanted to run, to escape, but she couldn't move. It wasn't his power holding her. It was the weight of what she had seen. The memory of burning worlds. The roar of something that wasn't human at all. Ethan stepped closer. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room like thunder rolling in a distant sky. "You want answers," he said. Lyra swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. What are you?" He tilted his head, like he was searching for the simplest way to break the truth. "We were human once, just human, flesh and bone. Weak like you thought we were." His lips curved into something that wasn't. Quite a smile. "Then your kind came." Lyra's breath caught. "My kind?" "Not just yours," he said, his tone sharp as glass. "The collective, the great empires, the ones who saw Earth as a resource, not a people. You experimented on us, cut us open, played with our genes like children playing with fire." He paused, his eyes locking on hers. "And you expected us to stay weak." Lyra shook her head slowly, disbelief twisting her thoughts. "That's impossible. If what you're saying is true, why haven't we seen this before? Why hasn't anyone?" "Because we hid," Ethan said. His voice was like a blade now, slicing through her words. "We learned. We adapted. We became something more. Something you couldn't predict. You made us stronger, Lyra. You gave us the key. And then you left, thinking we would die." He stepped closer, and for a moment she felt his presence not just in the room, but inside her mind, dark, deep, infinite. "What I carry inside me," he whispered, "isn't just power. It's every wound you gave us, every experiment, every scream in the dark, and we didn't destroy it." His eyes glowed brighter. "We embraced it." Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps. "That thing inside you, it's alive, isn't it?" Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Alive? No, it's more than alive. It's will, it's hunger. It's the memory of pain turned into strength. It's the reason why telepaths, like you, break when you touch us." His tone softened, almost gentle. "Your mind wasn't built for this." She flinched at his words, feeling the raw echo of his presence still lingering in her skull like a scar. The images returned: cities burning, alien fleets crumbling, the serpent in the sky. She forced her voice out, trembling and small. "What do you want?" Ethan stared at her for a long, heavy moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it shook her to the core. "We want what every species wants," he said. "To live, to survive, to never bow again." He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "But the galaxy doesn't want peace. It wants chains, and now..." His voice deepened, like the rumble before an earthquake. "It will learn what happens when you try to chain a storm." The floor trembled beneath her feet, as if the ship itself feared him. Outside the viewport, the shattered remains of the enemy fleet drifted like ashes in space. The silence was unbearable, pressing against her ears like iron. Lyra finally found. Her voice a whisper cracked with fear. "If what you say is true, if humans are what you claim, then what happens now?" Ethan's gaze softened. For the first time, there was something almost sad in his eyes, like a shadow of the man he once was. "What happens now?" he said slowly. "Is that everything changes?" And then the lights flickered. The alarms died. The hum of the engines fell silent. The ship was no longer in control. Something else was. Asterisk every sound on the ship. The alarms, the engines, the voices had vanished. Lyra stood frozen on the command deck, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. Like a drum in a dead world. Ethan didn't move. He didn't need to. The ship hummed softly, but it wasn't the sound of machines. It was alive in echo, a pulse, like a heartbeat coming from the walls themselves. "What did you do?" Lyra whispered, her voice trembling like glass. Ethan's glowing eyes turned to her slowly, and in them she saw something vast like the black ocean between stars, full of storms. "I didn't do this," he said softly. "We did. Lyra's." Blood turned cold. "We?" He stepped closer, and as he did, the shadows in the room seemed to bend toward him, like the light itself obeyed his will. "You thought you captured one human," he said. "But you didn't understand. We're connected now. Every one of us. Across your ships, your planets, your precious empires, we've been silent, waiting." The whisper in her mind returned, but this time it wasn't alone. More voices joined. It soft at first, then louder, overlapping like waves in a storm. Human voices, countless voices. "We hear you. We are awake. We are coming." Lyra clutched her head, sinking to her knees. It was too much. Too many minds pressing. Against her own, breaking through every shield, every barrier. Telepaths were never meant to touch this. Her world cracked like ice under fire. "Stop," she cried out. "Please stop." Ethan knelt in front of her. His voice was calm, but beneath it she heard the roar of something bigger something. No species should ever have created. "You wanted to know what happens when you break us," he whispered. "This is your answer." Images slammed into her mind. Entire fleets shattering like glass. Empires burning. Worlds falling silent as a tide of human ships rose from the dark. Not metal ships, living weapons, fused with something born from pain and fury and endless will. And at the heart of it all, human faces calm, unyielding, eyes glowing with that terrible light. The galaxy wasn't ready for this. It couldn't be. She felt a tear roll down her cheek. "You'll destroy everything." Ethan's eyes softened. For a brief second, she saw the man beneath the storm. The soldier. The human who once just wanted to survive. "We didn't want this," he said quietly. "We wanted peace. We begged for it. Your kind gave us chains instead." His voice darkened. "Now the galaxy will learn what happens when the chained break free." Lyra shook her head, tears falling faster. "Then kill me," she whispered. "End it now." Ethan reached out his hand, not in violence, but in something almost gentle. His fingers brushed hers, and the whisper stopped. The roar faded, the light dimmed. For one fragile moment, there was silence again, just her and him. Two beings caught between what was and what was coming. "You're not my enemy, Lyra," he said softly. "You're a witness." Her voice cracked. "A witness to what?" His eyes burned brighter than ever, and his next words froze her soul. "To the day the galaxy remembers why it should have feared humans." The floor shook violently. "Not from." An attack, but from something awakening deep inside the ship. Outside the viewport, space rippled like water, and then dark shapes emerged. Dozens, hundreds, human ships, but not like anything she had ever seen. Their hulls glowed with veins of living light, engines humming like the heartbeat of a beast. The fleet had arrived. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she whispered the last words that left her lips. "Oh, stars, what have we done?" Lights flared. The world shattered into white dot asterisk. The human didn't just break my mind. He broke reality itself. Asterisk the end.